Right. Live number 5,000 million. See if anybody jumps on. If you're watching this in the future, what's up? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. It's like almost 11 p.m. So whenever I'm doing these lives, I'm probably going to be a little tired, but that's whenever I have time. So see if anybody jumps on. It's been a pretty good crowd every night, answering some good questions, and it's really cool to connect with you guys every night too. So I just made some tea, but it is way too hot, dude. If I take a drink, it's gonna like burn my tongue, 100%. Like I like get close to taking a sip, and I'm like, nope, don't want the dead taste buds for the next year. So there's somebody. What's up? Whoever's watching, let me know in the chat who you are, where you're watching from. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you, but Dondre, what's up, man? Good to see you. I don't know about the handsome part, but I do what I can. The Raucous Show. What's up? Good to see you. Dondre from Arkansas. Oh, the handsome dude from Arkansas. I am from Arkansas, though. That I will concur. If you guys got some questions, lay them on me. What's up, KG? Happy to answer some questions, encourage you guys about depersonalization, realization, anxiety, panic attacks, trauma, complex trauma, major trauma, existential OCD, health anxiety, depression. There's a lot of stuff. Oh, you're from Arkansas. Oh, that's awesome. What part? Alexia says, I'm from Oregon. Awesome. So I'm not far from Little Rock. So kind of around that area. How do you win life? Is that a serious question? Just to clarify, before I give you advice about that, because it's a very broad question, and it's are you being serious? Like, or was that just kind of like a joke? Before I answer that, BIS01. How would you deal with anxiety within school? Okay, so give me a specific situation, so that way I can, speak to the context of that situation. Carter Chick said that I had DPDR for a while and I kind of learned to live with it. You shouldn't learn to live with it. It's not a good strategy. You don't have to live with it, man. Or girl. Sorry, you're Carter Chick. I don't live with it anymore, and that's all I do is help people get rid of it, get to the root of it. So, hi, Sanger Emin. What's up? Good to see you. Cutie little star, what's up? Alexia said, I have a question. I've been learning to work with my DPDR, and I'm feeling so much better. Again, guys, that's not a strategy. Like, you guys don't have to manage your symptoms. Go watch my free 45-minute masterclass in my profile. It'll also be under this video, and I will show you the 5 shifts, how to get to the root of that and never have to deal with this again. Like, if you're just wanting to manage symptoms, I'm not going to be much help to you, because that's not what I teach. That's not fair to my clients to teach them how to manage their symptoms whenever you can actually get rid of them. You're going to have to make a lot of adjustments in your life and body, because right now, if you're experiencing DPDR, your body is in a trauma response, but you can get out of this. I've literally been seeing it for 6 years now. I literally, in the last 2 days in my programs, I've gotten like 4 messages with people that are getting breaks from DPDR. Some of them only having worked with me for like a month or so. Some of them, it's taken a few months. How do you fix DPDR, Carter Chick? You have to understand why it's there. So depersonalization, realization are dissociative symptoms. And the word dissociation comes from a Latin root word that means to sever or to separate. And it's essentially whenever your brain starts to separate you from either your body or from the material world as a defense mechanism to mitigate the pain of what your brain thinks is you about to be eaten by a lion, right? So whenever you've got a ton of tension, adrenaline, emotion, and fatigue in the body, and it's all build up with no release because you're not self-regulating, eventually you hit overwhelm. And whenever you hit overwhelm in your body, your brain's like, okay, this person's being eaten by a lion. We got to get them out of here. And your brain will start to dissociate you sometimes. And depersonalization is a dissociative trauma coping mechanism to create some separation between you and your body. You may look at your hands and they feel like they're not your own hands. You may look in the mirror and see a stranger. You just feel detached from your body, or your brain may create some dissociation or separation from you and the material world. All of a sudden the world starts to feel fake and dreamlike, right? Why is your brain doing that? Well, because that is a way to create some distance between you and the source of a lot of pain. When your life is overwhelming and your body is overwhelming, your brain has a procedure for that, and it's called depersonalization. It's part of technically the freeze response, which is a mammalian defense mechanism that's designed to convey to a predator that you're dead so it loses interest and walks away. But just in case the predator doesn't lose interest and walks away, your brain will make your death by lion as numb and painless as possible. Now, you're not being eaten by a lion, so you may be thinking, well, why would I be experiencing these symptoms? Well, it's because there's so much overwhelm in your body and life that your brain thinks that you're being eaten by a lion. So that's why DPDR kicking in to get you away from that overwhelm in your life and body. So what most people do is they try to have a direct approach to getting the symptoms to go away. I'm going to just try to accept the symptoms. I'm not going to resist them as much, just not think about it, ignore the symptoms, or try to distract away from them. And yeah, some people see results with that. But you're not dealing with the root of why the symptoms are there to begin with. You're not dealing with the root of what's happening in your body and in your life. So at best, you're just going to get mitigation, but never elimination. I just signed up a guy for my program for like 6 years. 6 years. DPDR has been going in and out because he's never really dealt with the root. And so you have to get in tune with your body. This is called interoception, the experience of the embodied self. And then you got to start to release that buildup, release the tension, adrenaline, emotion, and fatigue, set up some boundaries in life. I've got a guy right now in our program. He just revealed to me that, he went through a breakup with this girl and he really hasn't dealt with the emotion of that. And so for him, that's one of the unique layers. I'm always telling you guys there's unique layers to every person. We're going to have to help him process that emotion. Sometimes suppressed emotion is a big reason why your brain thinks that you're in danger, because your body is so full of negative emotion that it's created overwhelm in the nervous system. So Samuel Rodriguez, what is up? Good to see you, buddy. You said, today I did a lot of research on DPDR and many said that there is no cure and there are strategies to live with it. So that is exactly what I came across whenever I was suffering. In fact, the very first website that popped up whenever I searched for how to get rid of those symptoms said there was no cure for depersonalization. I don't like the word cure because it implies this instant, effortless fix. And that doesn't exist. But can somebody find healing? Can they eliminate their symptoms? Yeah, of course. But it's going to require the right approach and the right guidance. The right approach needs to be body-centric, meaning that we need to be focused on getting the body in a much more calmer, relaxed state, releasing emotion if needed, releasing tension from the body. Sometimes adrenaline needs to be released. And then also making some lifestyle adjustments, guys. Like, you're not a machine. That's one thing that I tell my clients who are suffering with depersonalization realization. Part of why that's happening is because you don't have any boundaries in life. Like, you just muscle your way through, and you don't ever take care of yourself. Like, you don't have unlimited energy, and people don't want to hear this. This isn't popular. What's always going to be popular? Like, if I wanted to have millions of followers, I would be like that. What's that guy's name? That something Burns. Um, anyway, he wrote a book called Feeling Good. I actually have it just because I wanted to see what he's saying. But there's like 10,000 little quick fix things, right? And I'm not trying to bash him. I'm sure he's great. What I'm saying is like, I would be the acceptance guy or the distraction guy. If I really wanted to have mass appeal, that's what I would do, because that's what the masses are searching for, right? For example, in the fitness world, right? Everybody's looking for that supplement that's going to just drain the weight, right? Or give them muscle, right? People don't want to actually put in the work and the discipline for 5, 10, 15 years to really lose the weight, gain the muscle, etc. So I'm never going to appeal to the masses, and I've accepted that. I will tell you, if you really want to rewire your nervous system, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some adjustments. Like, you're going to have to get back in your body. You're going to have to set up some boundaries to make sure that you're not driving your body into the ground and just saying yes to everybody all the time and doing what everybody wants, even if you don't have energy. There's all kinds of adjustments. One thing that we work with people on is, not putting on a performance. It is exhausting to put on a performance. Whenever you're constantly, like, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Like, just don't do that. Like, you're afraid that if you don't put on a performance, people are going to reject you. But I say it's a good thing if they reject you whenever you don't put on the performance, because then you actually know that they care about you and that they want to hang out with you, that they want to be a part of your life. If you have to put on a performance to maintain connections with people, that's the first sign that you're probably connected to the wrong people, because the real people in your life, the people in your life that you should have a connection with, are the people that you can be yourself around. But anyway, that's one of the things that could be draining your energy and creating anxiety and panic and overwhelm, is that you're constantly putting on a performance. Just be you. Just drop the performance. So anyway, but these are the these are the things, all this stuff that I'm talking about, and you guys' mind, you're thinking, oh, well, when's he going to tell us what the real, I'm actually telling you guys for free things that you can do to get rid of this, but you're still thinking of the symptoms. You're obsessed with the symptoms. You think that the symptoms are the problem. The symptoms are not the problem. They are a symptom of the problem. Think about, like, if your car had a check engine light on it, right? You see that check engine light, you think, I need to get this to the mechanic. There's something going on underneath the hood. But yet whenever it comes, especially to DPDR, they're so terrifying. And I get it, guys, but they're so terrifying that people think, okay, I've got to get rid of these symptoms. And they make it their life's mission to get rid of DPDR, whenever we already talked about it. They're dissociative symptoms. Dissociation, dissociation comes from a Latin root word that means to sever or to separate. They are your brain separating you from your body and life. They're appropriate. They're biologically correct symptoms whenever your body is in a state of overwhelm. Your nervous system is in a state of overwhelm. Your life is in a state of overwhelm. So why would we try to directly fix the symptoms that are biologically correct for the state that you're in? Let's deal with the buildup. So that way your brain doesn't need to dissociate you away from your life and body. So what I teach my clients is, hey, let's make your body your safe place again. Let's deal with this buildup. Let's make whatever lifestyle adjustments we need to make, whatever you got to walk away from to prioritize your health. I don't care if it's a relationship. I don't care if it's a job. I don't care if you don't get to go out with your friends and drink all night. Whatever the cost is, you got to be willing to pay that and put your health first and watch what starts to happen. Your nervous system will respond. And you want to know how I know this? Because I'm seeing it every single day, guys. It is like clockwork. When somebody's willing to make the adjustments, they will see the results. Okay, Haley Hall says, is it normal to not remember how it felt like before a derealization episode happened? Good question. It's good to see you, Haley. So, yeah, I mean, people forget what normal feels like all the time. And that makes them afraid, because they're like, well, if I don't even know, or if I don't even remember what normal feels like, how could I heal from this? And what I tell people is, your nervous system only has two settings. You've got fight, flight, freeze response, which are designed to help protect you from physical danger. And then you've got your social engagement system, which is the part of your nervous system that comes back online whenever your brain perceives safety. So once we get your body out of fight, flight, freeze response, there's only one other setting in your nervous system, which is your social engagement system, the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. Once that comes back online, you feel connected to your body. You feel connected to the material world. You've got full access to your prefrontal cortex, logical, critical, creative, contextual thinking, as well as attentional awareness. You're able to easily socially engage. You're able to feel safe in the world, right? And even if you forgot what normal feels like, once we get your body out of fight, flight, freeze through self-regulation, co-regulation, and a few other things, it doesn't matter if you've been stuck in symptoms for a decade. You will go back to your social engagement system and you will feel normal, even if you've forgotten what normal feels like. We work with people all the time. It's been 10, 15, 20 plus years that they've been in symptoms. And they're like, well, what if I don't even recognize normal whenever it happens? And I'm like, oh, you'll notice it. It'll hit you like a ton of bricks. People get glimmers. That's a big thing that we do in our meetings. We start sharing glimmers, things that are happening that make them feel normal, glimmers of feeling normal again. Pineapple Water says he knows a lot more about this than the doctor specifically about this, or he would not have this site and you would not be here. Yeah, I mean, I tell people like definitely go see a doctor for sure. But I would tell you like, the chances that you're going to find a doctor specifically with trauma and DPDR that understand it is very unlikely. In fact, I've got multiple doctors in our program right now. I've worked with so many doctors and even a lot of medical school students, guys. Like it's kind of assumed like, oh, it's a doctor. Surely they're going to know everything about even mental health, medical health. There is a huge deficit, not just in the medical world, but also in the mental health world. Even most therapists, we have people that have came to us for years. I mean, thousands of people that worked with a therapist that had never even heard of depersonalization, dualization. Doesn't make the therapist a bad person, but basically there's a huge lack of education. And a big part of healing these symptoms is co-regulation. And if somebody has never even heard of the symptoms, it kind of compromises hope. And hope is a very big part of healing. So anyway, yeah, I tell people like, see a doctor, see a licensed mental professional. I have to give that disclaimer, but unfortunately in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, as a coach, right? I'm just a regular guy. I don't claim to be anything otherwise. I have to give you that disclaimer, but at the same time, unfortunately, I kind of know that you're probably not going to get the help that you need, unfortunately. Like if you're dealing with like, especially complex trauma and DPDR, sometimes people do, and thank God, man. I always tell people like, I kind of wish that I didn't have to have a job, like, I'm not excited that therapists don't usually know how to help with these symptoms. I'm not excited that doctors, I wish that I did. I wish I could do something else, guys. Like, you think I'm excited to literally carry traumatized people on my back? Like, it's rewarding, but it's extremely difficult. I hope one day that I don't have to have a job. I hope that one day you can go to any therapist in the world and get the help that you need. And if that were the case, I wouldn't have been doing this for 6 years. Nobody would need to come to you. You could just pick any therapist in your city and get help. But unfortunately, that's not the case right now. Unfortunately, most licensed mental professionals, when it comes to trauma particularly, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a 20th century understanding of trauma, not a 21st century understanding of trauma. What that usually translates to is people end up talking about their painful history week after week, sometimes for years and years and years, and they're not dealing with what's happening in their body, which is what a 21st century understanding of trauma would show us, is that trauma is a body that is constantly preparing for a threat that never comes. And to heal trauma, we don't need to go to the past, we need to go to the present. We need to convey safety to the body and nervous system in the present through a combination of self-regulation and co-regulation, and that is a big part of rewiring the nervous system and getting that person back into their social engagement system. But as long as you're stuck in the past, like, trauma is not a past event. It is a present perception of threat where there is no threat, and your body preparing to address that perceived threat in the form of fight, flight, freeze response in the body. So as long as you're in a wrestling match with the symptoms, or you're talking about painful things that happened when you were a child, I'm not saying those things are not ever, like, talking about your past may never be helpful, but you have to deal with the body in the present. That is what's going to really get you out of your symptoms. And that's what we do with people. And it works. That's how I got out of my symptoms. We've been doing this for 6 years. So, can DPDR episodes turn into anger and frustrations? Well, of course. Yeah, because if you think about it, most people that experience DPDR, it's called state 3 moderate trauma. So there's two states of trauma. There's state 3 moderate trauma and then state 4 severe trauma. In state 3 moderate trauma, you're experiencing a combination of trauma symptoms as well as fight or flight symptoms, right? Fight or flight, what you would call anxiety and panic. And in state 4 severe trauma, though, that would be like, let's say, the lion's carrying you off to the lion's den where there's 10 other lions waiting to eat you. There's no hope. Your body just completely numbs you out. There's no anxiety, no fight or flight symptoms in that state. And we get people that come to us in that state pretty regularly. I would say maybe 1 out of 15 or 20. Don't quote me on that. Most people that come to us, though, it's state 3 moderate trauma. And in state 3 moderate trauma, you're going to have some anxiety symptoms. You're going to have some DPDR. Maybe there's some memory issues. Maybe time feels distorted, but you're also having anxiety, maybe panic attacks, maybe not, anxious thoughts, all that stuff. But that also includes a lot of emotional dysregulation, of course, right? I mean, think about it, like fight or flight response is really anger. Part of it is anger, right? If you were fighting or fleeing from a lion, you got adrenaline, cortisol pumping through your bloodstream, your muscles are tightened. Like, you could say it's also part of anger. So that definitely happens. So, okay, so the Raucous Show, good question, buddy. You said, is DPDR basically a state of ignoring trauma roots? Again, when you guys think of trauma, you're going to think in the past. But what I want you to focus on is the present, right? Your body going into fight, flight, freeze response in the present. That is what trauma is. It's what's left over from the painful past experiences. What ended up happening, I mean, you could have been in physical danger in the past. That definitely happens. But let's say you weren't. Well, the brain technically registers emotional distress and physical pain is the same thing. It's the anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula. And whenever you have a painful emotional experience, your brain encodes the sensory data around you as being associated with a threat and assigns the procedure of fight, flight, freeze response to that sensory data. So that way, whenever you come across similar sensory data in the future, you will subconsciously activate the procedure of fight, flight, freeze response in the body. And guess what? Once your brain forms these neural connections of threat association and assigns that procedure of fight, flight, freeze response to that sensory data, every time that they fire, these neural pathways, they get stronger and they fire faster. What does that mean? That means that every day that you go by and you're not doing things to rewire the brain and rewire the nervous system, your brain is getting more and more finely tuned to keep you in fight, flight, freeze response. And eventually, you don't just have neural connections of threat association, you have neural highways of threat association, which is just a finely tuned neural system that is going to keep you perceiving threat where there is no threat and keep you constantly stuck in anxiety, panic, DPDR, all that stuff. So the root of the trauma is painful past experiences, and the trauma is your body constantly going into a threat response where there is no threat, right? And DPDR, if you guys are going through that, those symptoms are there to dissociate you. Remember, dissociate means it's a Latin root word that means to separate or sever. It's to separate you from the trauma happening in your body, just in case you're being eaten by a lion. That's really what's going on. And so that's why directly trying to get rid of DPDR is like if you're 100 pounds overweight and you're directly trying to get rid of the fat, right? You indirectly get rid of the fat by exercising and changing your diet. And the fat will indirectly start falling off, not because you sat there and tried to squeeze the fat or accept the fat or distract away from the fat. I know it's a silly example, but it's relevant, right? So let me see if my tea's ready. I made it too hot tonight. What are some ways to release trauma in the body, go watch my free masterclass. I'll talk about that. That's what the whole thing is about, man, is releasing that buildup. Let's see here. Okay, the Rocket Show says, is it ever the case when someone gets to the root and resolves it and worries DPDR will come back, will it trigger it again? That's a good question. So, oh, no problem, Abigail. Good to see you. Ooh, how do you deal with emotions? I can talk to you about that too. So hang on, guys. I'm trying to get through some of these. So, ooh, read what Av Knox just said. That'll encourage you. But anyway, do people worry about the symptoms coming back? Not if they really get to the root and live a preventative lifestyle where they're self-regulating, they're listening to their body, they're releasing the tension, emotion, adrenaline from their body, they have boundaries in life. Like, I don't worry about the symptoms coming back. I'm not waking up in the morning, I'm like, man, God, I hope that these symptoms don't come back today. Like, whenever you're living a preventative lifestyle and you know why the symptoms are gone, like, you're confident, you're not worried. And see, that's the thing about this approach where, like, you don't really know why the symptoms are even gone. Like, it's like, okay, sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not there, is you live in fear of them coming back because you never really know why they were gone to begin with. Maybe they kind of went away because you kind of just stopped focusing on them and you kind of lowered your resistance, but that's not a good long-term strategy. There's too much buildup in the body that needs to be dealt with. So anyway, if you deal with the root, then no, you're not going to worry about it coming back. Just like, for example, let's say that somebody was 100 pounds overweight, right? And they hire a fitness coach, they get the best diet that you can get, and they burn off all the fat. And then they start to live a preventative lifestyle where they're doing a calorie deficit, they're eating healthy meals, whether it's paleo, whatever, and they're exercising a certain amount per day that's going to keep the fat off. Are they going to be waking up worried every day? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm so worried the fat's going to come back. No, they know that if they live a preventative lifestyle and eat healthy and exercise, it's not gonna come back. So I want to read this really quick. Evan Knox says, just wanted to stop by on my saw you on my sub page. Your videos saved me through my year-long DPDR episode. So thankful, man. 3 years without it now. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you're doing better, man. Thank you for sharing that. And then also Vanessa Tramiel, what's up, Vanessa? Good to see you. You said, how do you deal with emotions? You know, I mean, I just recently did like a 2 or 3 hour masterclass on emotion, so there's a lot I could say, but generally speaking, emotions need to be felt and not suppressed, right? I was just talking with a client today, and he said right before our session, he started to cry, and then on the session, you know, I said something I think that just kind of made him encouraged or whatever. He started to cry, and he was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, bro, what are you doing, man? Like, release it. Come on, man. Like, I'm here for you. Like, dude, let's go ahead and process this, man. But we have a tendency to stuff down our emotions, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, crying, whatever it is. I'll tell you, especially, what's up, Crazy Gamer? Especially with crying as a man, you know, there's a lot of bias towards that, right? Like it's not just men, it's women too. I have women all the time in coaching sessions that'll be suppressing their crying. But especially as men, you know, we feel like crying makes us weak. But what I will tell you is crying doesn't make you weak, it makes you strong. Because you're allowing your body to complete this process that it needs to complete in order to heal. It's actually less masculine to suppress your emotions, right? Because one of the epitomes of masculinity is emotional control. And if you are stuffing down your emotions, you're going to be either two things. One, you're going to be emotionally dysregulated all the time. Or two, you're going to be emotionally numb. So Neither one of those things are going to work. And by the way, whether male or female, we all need to face and feel our emotions, but especially as men, we have a tendency. And I think, there might be like this kind of, oh, you're a man, just deal with it, right? But you know what? Men need to cry too sometimes. I cry sometimes. Men need to feel that anger and release it in a healthy way. Like, emotions are not gender specific, right? Everybody has emotions, and everybody needs to find a safe and healthy way to release them. A lot of questions coming in, guys, so I'm gonna have to cherry pick. Okay, so let's talk about floaters, right? Eye floaters. Um, hold on one second. By the way, just to clarify, which I've said this on every live stream, if you say anything that's like out of character or just whatever, I'm just gonna block you. I'll never acknowledge you. I'll never allow you to intrude into people that their life is at stake because you're saying something silly. I haven't done it for years now, so just don't even waste your time. You're just gonna get blocked, and it's not gonna be worth your time. So anyway, I just blocked somebody because they said something that was just really out of character. But anyway, so eye floaters. So you always have eye floaters. That's what you need to know. Eye floaters are always there. But whenever your body goes into fight or flight response, you call it anxiety or panic, your pupils dilate and you're letting in more light into your retina, and thus you're able to see the eye floaters. But people think that they're just now showing up, and they freak out and they think that there's something wrong with them. But what I will tell you is you always have eye floaters. Everybody does, especially the older that you get, the more eye floaters that you have. But the only thing that's happening is whenever you're anxious, your pupils dilate, you're letting in more light, and you're able to see it. The example that I give my clients in my trainings is, let's say that you're like in a dark room, and basically there's all kinds of dust and you can't see it. And then all of a sudden you start to shine a light into the room. You open up the blinds and light is flooding in. You're able to see the dust in the corner, but it was already still there. You're just now able to see it. So that's the case with the eye floaters. So so Sub is asking about existential thoughts and DPDR. Are they the same? DPDR will oftentimes induce existential obsession and rumination because depersonalization and realization are just very otherworldly. They're very existential symptoms, right? You feel detached from your body or you feel detached from the material world. So naturally, that's going to create some rumination. But for some people, it starts to become more than just kind of being uncomfortable with the subject of existence. Some people, it's extreme obsession with existence and consciousness, the afterlife. It's very common that DPDR may induce that because DPDR are so existential in nature. Whenever you feel detached from your very being, right, our body is how we experience the material world. And then also with derealization, the material world feels fake and dreamlike. How could that not induce, some existential, rumination for sure? Hyper awareness of consciousness is part of DPDR. Not always. No, it depends. It depends on each person, but it's very common, I will say. What is up? Hope you guys are doing good. Those of you who just joined, those of you who've been here for a minute. Again, I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be able to answer everybody's questions, but I will do my best as they're coming in. Anybody have any more questions? I'm trying to pick the ones that I think will help everybody. And like I said, guys, like I can't, help somebody recover over a live stream, but I definitely can just give you some encouragement and just, some little bits and pieces that may help you along your journey. So, but definitely check out my 5 shifts masterclass. There's a link under this video. Go to any of my videos on my page. It'll show you the 5 shifts for how to heal trauma, anxiety, panic, and DPDR. Existential thoughts come to me at times. Used to have severe panic attacks about planet Earth and outer space. Yeah, like whenever I was struggling with let's call it existential OCD, like just thinking about existence would literally cause me to go into absolute panic and severe DPDR. Like it was such a sensitive topic. And, with my clients like that are suffering with kind of existential OCD, they'll be just on TikTok or YouTube, whatever. They'll see a video about existence and that'll send them into a panic attack sometimes for a while and just days of anxiety. Just anything about existence can really be triggering for the person suffering with, existential OCD. What happens is the subject of existence gets marked as a threat. And so anything that's similar to that is perceived to be a threat. Just wish to know what normal feels like. I know, Zoe. I'm so sorry to hear that you're not feeling good. And make sure to check out my free 5 Shifts Masterclass. Hopefully that'll help you. And there's also a button that you can click on to apply to work with me and my team. We'll do our best to help you as well. But I hope you're going to do okay. I'm sure you will. What's up, Crystal? Good to see you. What's up, Duck? That's a cool name. Yeah, like I said earlier, Zoe, I mean, like, even if you've forgotten what normal feels like, it doesn't mean that you can't feel normal again. So GR Wagon says, can I cure my social anxiety by myself? That's a good question. And like I said, some of these topics, I get kind of excited, and I could probably talk to you for like 5 hours about social anxiety. I help my clients with that a lot, but I do believe that you can make a lot of progress on that, possibly get rid of it yourself, depending on how, like if that was your only issue with social anxiety, yeah, I think a lot of people could get free of it themselves, but there's just so many things I could say. What do I say about social anxiety? The number one thing that I would say for social anxiety is to remind yourself that nobody is thinking about you. Like, part of what fuels social anxiety is that people's mind tells them that everybody's focused on them and like hyper fixating on every word that they're saying and the way that they're dressed and their movements and stuff like that. Whenever in reality, most people are not doing that. Whenever you walk by somebody or you first enter into a group of people, they're going to look you up and down to make sure that you're not a threat. That is subconscious. They're not even consciously doing that. And like if you walk into a restaurant or something and you see everybody looking at you, your brain, your tribal brain is going to think, oh, everybody's judging me. The tribe is rejecting me. And then you're going to start to turn inward and you start to get really anxious and overly observe the way that you're speaking and the way that you're acting and moving and all this stuff. And that just stresses you out. But one thing that you can do is the next time that you walk into a social situation and everybody looks at you, wait about 60 seconds to 2 to 3 minutes and then look back, and you're going to realize that nobody is looking at you anymore. They're looking at their phone, they're looking at their steak if it's a restaurant, or they're looking at their beer if it's at a party, whatever the situation is. So that's one tip for you. The next thing that I would say is be in social situations. Whenever you avoid social situations, that's only going to make it worse, because whatever we run from, our brain assumes is a lion trying to eat us. And so don't run from it. Intentionally put yourself in social situations. Another tip is start to relax your body, because the more tense that your body is, the more that your brain's going to think is a threat. And then the third thing, this is really important, This also applies to public speaking or speaking in any way, but slow down your speaking and let there be spaces between your words. Sometimes what causes social anxiety, I used to have this happen with me, and I see this with my clients sometimes, is they'll be like, Speedy Gonzalez. Yeah, so the other day I was going here, blah, blah, blah. And your mind is not having time to catch up with what you're saying, right? There's this lag between your ability to formulate a thought and speak it out. So whenever you kind of slow your speech down like 30%, and whenever you have spaces in between your words or statements, and you're calming your body as well, that will help you a lot. And what I've also noticed is whenever you pause between sentences, have you guys noticed, like, whenever I do that, it gives your mind a chance to kind of absorb, doesn't it? It's a lot easier to listen to somebody that pauses than somebody that doesn't do that. Now, I'll go off on a rant and I won't pause for a little while, but I try to catch myself and pause for a few seconds so people can really digest what I'm saying. It also gives me the opportunity to kind of really formulate my thoughts, right? Because whenever I'm working with somebody, I mean, like, I'm taking in a lot of information. I try to give really contextualized advice. And so I need to be able to really think. And you can't do that if you're just Speedy Gonzalez through everything. And by the way, just a general tip for like generalized anxiety, which there's so many tips I could give you, is just slow everything down, particularly your speaking pace, your walking pace, and your breathing pace. Catch yourself whenever you're just, I used to walk so fast whenever I was anxious. In fact, I remember one time I was working at a grocery store, and I brought my guitar and my banjo into work that day because, like, my management wanted to hear it. And I just walked so fast because I was so anxious. And I kind of like walked in really fast, and I had like this big, long black guitar case or whatever. And I like rushed into the break room, and my management was like, dude, we kind of thought you were like coming in to, shoot up the place or something. Like, this guy walks in with this big black bag, just like running. I always used to tell people, I've just got long legs. That's why I walk fast. But I was really anxious. And so slow down your walking pace. That's going to, if you're speeding through life, that's going to communicate to your nervous system that there's a threat. Slow down your breathing pace. Every now and then, take a slow diaphragmatic breath. Inhale for 4 seconds to the nose. Let your whole core go out. Your belly and your chest are going to go out. And then exhale for 7 seconds. When you exhale, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That's what's going to calm down your sympathetic nervous system, that's stress. So that's why you want to extend that exhale. But slow down your breathing pace, your speaking pace, and your walking pace. Another thing that you guys should work on is your posture, right? How many of you have posture like this, where you're kind of like hunched over? You kind of look like Filbert the Turtle from Rocko's Modern Life, if you've ever seen that show. How many Rocko's Modern Life fans do we have? Do we have any 90s kids in here? Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko's Modern Life. Remember that show? Anybody? Nope. I talked to like a bunch of 20-year-olds that come to our program, and they have no idea about NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and, Rocko's Modern Life. All Real Monsters. You guys know what I'm talking about? That's what's up. Doug. Dude. You guys, okay, Crystal knows. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I have no idea why I started talking about that. Oh yeah, I was talking about, Filbert the Turtle. He's like, I'm nauseous. You turn the page, you wash your hands. You turn the page, and then you wash your hands. You guys know what I'm talking about? Instead of having a hunched over posture, start to have a little bit more of a kind of upright posture. You don't have to be like poking your chest out, but just kind of stand up straight with your shoulders back. That posture is opposite of threat. There's actually something called power posing. They did a study in Harvard, and don't quote me on this, but if you'll stand, it's like a Superman pose basically. In this case, you would kind of poke your chest out for like 2 or 3 minutes. The people that did that in this study, they were like 60% more likely to make like a big decision or a risky decision or something. And then their cortisol, the stress hormone, dropped like by like 20% or something. It was crazy just by your posture, guys. So, anyway. Black Orange says, do you drink alcohol or caffeine in any amount? So, I, man, I've probably drank 2 beers in the last year. Like, I'm just not a, I'm just, I've never been a big drinker. Maybe in high school, because it was like, oh, we got some Bush Lights, it's like, like a couple parties, I admit, don't tell my mom that I did sneak into a few parties, but, but no, I've never been a big drinker. I do drink caffeine though. So I've started to drink a little bit of coffee in the morning. My wife and I go on a walk every morning, and I've started to drink a little bit of coffee. I've been drinking like McDonald's. It's like the little Keurig cup things, the K cups. It's like blueberry or something like that. But anyway, but yeah, I kind of have a lot of natural energy, so I don't need too much. So Vid Clips says, do you feel like you're so lonely and you have no motivation and you feel like your future is meaningless? I think you were talking to somebody else, but let me tell you something. I have been there. I've been to some really, really, really low points in my life, guys. I'm definitely in an up time in my life, but I spent a lot of my life being anxious or traumatized or depersonalized or depressed. I mean, I'm 34, and I spent a lot of my life in a bad place, guys, bad state. And I had to fight my way out of it. I had to literally climb out of hell. And it was not easy. And I had to make a lot of sacrifices, and I had to go through the process of rewiring my nervous system. I had to walk away from some abusive people. I went through narcissistic abuse. Like, I'm talking like severe, like brainwash, like cult-like level brainwashing, narcissistic abuse. Multiple times from multiple people. Was severely bullied. Just I've been through some, I'm not trying to say woe is me or whatever, but I literally did not think that I would ever be happy. I thought that my life had been set and it is what it is, right? But that wasn't the case, right? But what I will tell you is that nobody's going to make it happen for you. Nobody's coming to save you. Like, you are the hero that you've been waiting for. And I'm not saying that people won't help you. Maybe I come along your side and help you. Maybe somebody else does. Like, that's great, and you need help, and that's awesome. But at the end of the day, even making the decision to get help, you have to make that decision. The only thing that I will tell you is it's possible. It's possible. You can change your life. You don't have to yield to the current narrative, to the current deck of cards. I don't care how hopeless it feels and how certain in your mind that this is just my life. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be like that. You can be happy. You can be healthy. You can literally live a great life. Even if you're older, sometimes people are 40s, 50s when they come to us. You can still live the last part of your life and live a great life. So anyway, I've been seeing a lot of questions about marijuana-induced symptoms. So I'm sure you're talking about, DPDR. So, okay, hold on. I got to pause. So Tiffy says, any chance you would take tattoo work and trade for your program? I'm a 28-year seasoned artist. Okay. Probably not, because I'm extremely particular. Like, I've got like the guy who did my wife on my hand, like his name's Quinn. He does like realism tattoos. That's probably what I'm looking for. Like on my other arm, I'm gonna do like a sleeve on the other arm. So you'd probably have to be able to do realism tattoos, and I know a lot of people don't specialize in that. So, but if you did realism tattoos and you were like extremely good, I definitely actually would consider that, man. Just because tattoos are very expensive. Um, so anyway, marijuana induced depersonalization realization, right? Let's talk about that. So you do, and you okay, so okay, sorry guys, I hate to pause. Shoot me an email. Actually, shoot it to my assistant. It's support@coachjordanhargrave.com. Say, hey, I'm the tattoo artist from the live stream. Send me some pictures of your work, and I'll have my assistant get with me whenever you send it. So it's support@coachjordanhargrave.com, and shoot that to me, okay? Awesome. So sorry. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about marijuana-induced DPDR. So THC in small amounts can calm anxiety, but THC in higher amounts causes or exacerbates anxiety. And so a lot of times what happens with people is they essentially take in too much THC that their body is not prepared for. Maybe they're not seasoned smokers. That's what happened to me whenever I had my first panic attack. It happened because of a bad marijuana experience, and that's initially what triggered DPDR. And so what ends up happening is people who haven't smoked very much, or maybe even ever, all of a sudden ingest a ton of THC, it really triggers their nervous system. And because they're high, they can't come down, right? The high is keeping their nervous system escalated. And so they have to essentially wait till the high wears off before they can really downregulate their nervous system. And that's what happened to me, right? And I spent hours and hours just pacing back and forth in my friend's yard, having a panic attack. And because the high was there, it just, I couldn't really calm myself down. And I felt trapped and overwhelmed. And that's why trauma happens. Trauma happens at the point of overwhelm. And that's also why depersonalization realization happens. It happens whenever you're in a state of overwhelm in your nervous system, your brain thinks you're dying, and DPDR are there to disconnect you from what your brain thinks is you about to be eaten by a lion. Ariel, if you're still watching, she says, you're right with that. I've learned I'm the only hero. Yeah. Like, yeah, well, I mean, if you're gonna be yeah, I'm sorry, man. Like, guys, like, if you're gonna be disrespectful, like, again, like, I'm just not gonna, like, if you want to ask a question, that's fine. But like, anyway, but yeah. So as far as being your own hero, guys, nobody's coming to save you. It's very, very important that you know this, because like, I tell people, like, don't take ownership of like the bad things that have happened to you necessarily, unless you just know that it's your fault or whatever. But some things had nothing to do with you. Sometimes you went through some injustice, right? Like, I went through severe narcissistic abuse, and I was brainwashed. I was manipulated. Gaslighting, projection, lying, manipulation. Also, one of them was a romantic relationship, and there's something called love bombing. It's actually a manipulation tactic. Some of you may have gone through this, where somebody who is a narcissist, and they don't have to be a narcissist to love bomb, but narcissists love to do it. They'll basically just flood you with compliments, and they'll listen to you, and they'll buy you things, and they appear to be Prince Charming or Miss Charming or whatever, and you think it's real. And they lure you in, and then by the time that you figure out that that wasn't the case, you're so brainwashed that you don't even realize what's going on. I always say a narcissist is like a Venus flytrap, right? They catch you, especially if they're a covert narcissist, which is somebody who's very covert about their narcissistic uh, tactics. They're extremely good at concealing their tactics. And so, with that being said, I was under severe narcissistic abuse. I was brainwashed into thinking that I am the worst person in the world. And I just let different people run all over me. That's why, like, guys, like I'm telling you, like, I'm not going to allow anybody to disrespect me. Like, you will be like it just you guys have seen, like, I'm not gonna acknowledge you. I'm probably just gonna block you. Like, I don't do that anymore, guys. Like, that's one reason why I don't have a bunch of symptoms, is I don't let people walk all over me. Like, I don't put up with people that want to try to come into my life and create havoc. I don't have time for that. I will not allow you into my life, whether it's online or whether it's in person. And you know what? I had to go through years of narcissistic abuse and bullying before I put up that boundary. And that was part of why my nervous system was dysregulated, because I just let people pick on me. And I don't do that anymore. Right? And I don't let abusive people, toxic people come into my life and drain my energy. Nope, sorry. I'm not going to do it. And you guys need to have the same boundary, because there are people that will literally waste your entire life if you let them. Never let a person or a group of people drain your energy and waste your life. It's not worth it, guys. I have a zero toleration for that type of stuff, man. I'm just not going to do it. But anyway, I guess what I was trying to say is, I was a victim. I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. But the moment that I got that knowledge of what was going on, that was a big part of why I was able to walk away from these people. Again, there were probably 3+ people that I had to really get boundaries with or walk away from, is I got the knowledge of what was happening. You're only a victim up until the point that you know what's going on. And once you have the knowledge of what's going on, then you're empowered to make the change that you need to make. So if you've got the knowledge and you're not doing anything with it, well, that would be a victim mentality, right? You're still waiting on the hero, even though you know that you're the hero. But what I try to do is I try to empower people so they can realize how powerful that their body is, that their nervous system is, that they are. So anyway, so going back to marijuana-induced DPDR, it's extremely common, guys. Like, again, and I want to be very clear, like, I'm not going to get into the political side of, like, marijuana, is it good or bad? Like, I've seen marijuana, like, help some people that have certain medical issues. Like, I saw a video with this guy who was, like, shaking, and then he took in some marijuana. He's perfectly calm. Like, who am I to say? Like, I was raised to believe marijuana is the devil. I grew up in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. But I personally don't smoke it. But I don't have any disrespect or any look down on anybody who does. But from a nervous system perspective, marijuana is not for everybody. And, like, some people's nervous system just doesn't jive with it. And a lot of people, I don't think, want to accept that, and they just keep smoking it, or, whether it's brownies or whatever, over and over and over again. And they just haven't accepted that for whatever reason, their nervous system just doesn't jive with it. And I think also some people just take in too much too fast. So it essentially just overwhelms their nervous system. And I'll also tell you this, whenever it comes to, um, you know, whenever it comes to my first time experiencing panic attacks and DPDR, things like that, you know, it wasn't just the marijuana that set me into nervous system overwhelm. Like, that was part of it, but I walked into that situation with my friends with tons of buildup of tension, adrenaline, emotion in my body. And so it's like that's complex trauma, right? It's not just one major situation, it's the buildup of stress and adversity over a period of time. So I had a very painful history. And so you could think of it like a cup of water. Once I smoked the marijuana and smoked way too much, I was already walking around up here, and it didn't take much to hit overwhelm. DPDR feels like a terrible weed trip to me. Absolutely. A lot of people describe it as feeling like they're high and they just can't shut it off. It's like a high that never ends. Absolutely. Ariel says, I had the same experience. I was a chronic smoker for 10 years, and then I had 2 traumatic events within a year, then panic attacks, and then boom, right. Yeah. Again, like, I'm not going to speak to, whether, it's moral or immoral or good or bad. Like, I just don't care about that. I literally don't care what you do with your life. But I will tell you, probably 30%, I'm being conservative, 30% of the people that I've worked with that came to me with severe anxiety and DPDR, marijuana or some other drug is what induced it. We've seen, you know, uh, LSD, mushrooms, uh, dimethyltryptamine, all kinds of stuff, guys. And they just have the bad experience with the drug really overwhelms their nervous system. And sometimes they were completely calm before that. But a lot of times there was a lot of buildup. And maybe for some people, that's why they were looking to the drugs, is because their body was in such a place of chaos. So they just wanted to feel better. And then ironically, they ended up feeling worse. So. Okay, so Cameron Tenpenny says, hey, Jordan, I don't know if you're still on here, Cameron. Sorry, I missed your question, buddy. 10 pennies, not 11 pennies, but 10. Good to see you, buddy. Finally got to hop on a Q&A. I've had DPDR for 5 years on and off. My questions are, does vaping cause DPDR or trigger it because it triggers sympathetic nervous system? So here's what I'll tell you, is I've got a client that I'm working with right now. And, we had to make a lot of adjustments in her life, some work adjustments. She actually changed jobs because her job was just way too overwhelming for her. It was messed up. The hours were really bad. She had to get in tune with her body. She had to release tension, adrenaline, emotion. She had to, get some updated education about what's going on. But for her, like, whenever she stopped vaping as much as she was, it was almost an immediate effect on her sleep and on her nervous system. And the more that she has quit vaping slash nicotine, the better that she's felt. And so, yeah, I mean, I've looked into the studies or whatever. And there's not as conclusive studies as I would like to see as far as the connection between nicotine and anxiety, but there seems to be a case to be made that nicotine, smoking in particular, can cause anxiety for sure. I know that in my life, I've smoked cigarettes. I used to vape, and I definitely felt more stressed slash anxious whenever I did those things. So, Obelisk says, do you have any suggestions how to not be so afraid when a panic attack comes? I now know what they are when it's happening, but still get stuck. I'm ruminating that I'm losing my mind or dying. So invite it in. Just continually invite it in. That's one thing that will help you a lot. So a panic attack is typically fueled by the fear of having another panic attack. Fear builds off of fear, builds off of fear, resistance builds off of more resistance, and it just continues to escalate your sympathetic nervous system until you're at the point of panic. And so one of the ways that I got over panic attacks is I started to invite them in instead of resist them. Think of it like a tug of war, right? Like you're just constantly pulling on this rope, and it's just escalating your nervous system. So you have to just let go of the rope. And what you'll find is what you're fearing is not going to happen. See, I thought that my resistance is the only thing that was keeping me from my heart stopping or from dying or whatever I thought was on the other side of that panic attack. So I thought my resistance was a prerequisite for me remaining alive. So I didn't want to stop resisting. But once I stopped resisting, my fears did not happen. My heart did not stop. I did not die. Nothing happened. So, but then really with panic attacks, I tell people like that's like the short-term, strategy is just invite it in. But the long-term strategy is like, why is your body so built up with tension, adrenaline, and emotion? That's what we need to really focus on getting rid of. Okay, so Cameron asked and guys, I am going to probably jump off here in just a minute. But Cameron asked a really good question. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to answer it. So he said, does overcoming symptoms mean avoiding anything that triggers sympathetic nervous system activation? And you mentioned vaping, stressful situations. So the short answer is no, but it depends on what we're talking about, right? There are some environments and situations and people that are objectively stressful, right? There's something called the nervous system war zone, which is an environment that is highly chaotic, highly unstable, highly unpredictable, highly aggressive, or highly punitive. And if you are in one of those environments, coming through a person or wherever, and again, highly, not just a little unstable, not just a little unpredictable, not just a little punitive, like highly unstable, highly aggressive, highly punitive, all the things I just mentioned, that's called the nervous system war zone. And you can't outregulate a nervous system war zone. So that's why I tell people, like, if you're in an abusive relationship, verbal, mental, emotional, right, doesn't just include physical abuse or sexual abuse. That's definitely abuse, but I think a lot of people minimize how devastating mental, emotional abuse can be, or even spiritual abuse. So if you're in an environment that is a nervous system war zone, you probably are going to have to walk away in order for you to be able to get rid of your anxiety or panic or trauma and overwhelm, DPDR, because you can't outregulate a nervous system war zone. Now, that's the exception, though. Unless it's a nervous system war zone, technically speaking, your stress and anxiety is a conditioned response based on a painful history that can be reconditioned because of something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is our brain's ability to reprogram. The brain is constantly changing, and if you're going into fight, flight, freeze response because there's some sort of sensory trigger, and there actually is no nervous system war zone, there's no danger, then you can desensitize it. And you don't need to avoid that environment. In fact, you need to intentionally face that environment in a relaxed body. That's one thing that we have our clients do, because exposure and relaxation are counter responses to threat. That is one of the ways that you will start to rewire your nervous system. So, yeah, avoid toxic or abusive people. But if the environment is safe, meaning that there's no mental, physical, emotional, or any other type of abuse coming from it, You need to desensitize that environment, and you have to be in that environment to do it. So that's the first step, is exposure. And then the second thing is relaxation, because those two things are opposite of threat. And whenever you do things that are opposite of threat in the presence of a sensory trigger that has been conditioned to be associated with threat because of painful past experiences, your brain will start to desensitize it, because now your brain's like, wait a second, they're intentionally being in this environment. They were avoiding it. They're relaxing their body. What is this? There can't be a line here. Let's start to change the association. And that is one thing that we help our clients do. Cheyenne, I'm gonna give you some advice, but I want to give some disclaimers first, okay? I've got a lot to say about relationships, and honestly, I've thought about just creating like a relationships YouTube channel, especially helping people heal from narcissistic abuse or know if they need to walk away from a relationship. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk to you, okay, Cheyenne? So just hang out, and other people too. I think that you should stay, because I think that even if this doesn't help you now, it may help you in the future. So you said, I'm currently debating leaving my daughter's father because it's exhausting trying to make this relationship feel safe. Okay. I've got a lot of disclaimers to give here, okay? Very important. Number one, I don't know enough of the situation. You need to be working with like a local counselor or a pastor of a church or just therapist, whoever, who can really, really, really get the context, because I may misspeak because I'm only hearing one part of the story, right? So the first thing that I would say is you should try to fight for your marriage, okay? Unless there's just like apparent abuse, maybe that's the exception. But again, sometimes people call something abuse, it isn't really abuse, right? Like every couple fights sometimes. It doesn't mean that the person is an abuser because they end up getting angry sometimes. Like, people are human. You should try to fight for your marriage, assuming that there's not like overt abuse. All right. I am one of those people that believes that marriage is a covenant, and it's not an unbreakable covenant. It takes two people to form a covenant, a marriage covenant. Only takes one person to break it. Like, somebody could cheat, somebody could become abusive or extremely neglectful to the point where there is no relationship. Even biblically, by the way, there are some instances where even God condones divorce. But with that being said, you should try to fight for your marriage. See a marriage counselor, buy some books, take some courses, right? Get a relationship coach or counselor, marriage counselor. Like, try to fight for it. But like, when do you walk away? That's the question. And that's hard for me to answer. I don't, again, like, biblically, which I know I'm not assuming everybody's a Christian in here, but biblically, I can show you from the Old and New Testament that extreme neglect, abuse, or infidelity are technically three situations that God is like, it's okay to walk away and get a divorce. But do you think that you're dealing with somebody that is on the narcissist spectrum, Cheyenne? Because I have talked a little bit about narcissistic abuse. Because if you do think that, I've got some resources that I want to point you to. That there's a clinical psychologist named Dr. Romani that specializes in narcissistic abuse. She's written multiple books about it. She is the go-to person if that's what you're thinking. And I would highly recommend that you check out her books. Let me know in the chat, Cheyenne, and I can, if you think that's what you're dealing with. Okay, so extreme neglect, very emotionally abusive, not physical, and some infidelity. Okay, yeah, so you've heard of her. So she's written a book. I have both of her books, Should I Stay or Should I Go? She's also just written one called It's Not You. I would really familiarize yourself with what's in that book. Guys, most people are not a narcissist. I think that we're so, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Cheyenne. We are so quick because of this boom of TikTok and people doing videos about narcissism. That's one reason why I stopped doing them. My videos on narcissism on TikTok had like 15, between 10 and 15 million views. Um, but I stopped doing it because so many people were sending my videos to their husband or wife. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Guys, I'm gonna do the rest of the meeting in mimes. Okay, sorry. I guess I got a little too excited to hit the mute button. What I was saying is just because somebody operates in some of the 9 traits of narcissism, which you need to know what they are, does not make them a narcissist. So don't think, oh, my husband lied or he projected a little bit. I'm not saying you're doing this, Cheyenne. But just because somebody gaslights or lies or projects a couple times does not make them a narcissist. We got to be careful with that. I don't know the percentage of the population that have like narcissistic personality disorder. You know, it's highly debated, somewhere between 1 and 5% or whatever, last time I checked. But like, don't assume that your spouse is a narcissist just because they do one thing that you saw on a TikTok video, right? Or even something that I mentioned, right? A narcissist is somebody like you'll know it. Little to no levels of empathy. Like if you're with a narcissist in a relationship, they've probably never apologized for almost anything. Technically, a narcissist is somebody who's vulnerability avoidant. They don't know how to deal with their emotions. That's why they have a sense of superiority. That's why they deny reality. That's why they project all the issues onto you. That's why they lie all the time. Is because they can't handle the emotion of feeling inferior. They can't handle the emotion of being wrong. So if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, one of the ways that you'll know that is you're always wrong. Always. Like they never apologize. If they do, it's just because they have to. And they don't have any empathy. They don't feel bad when they hurt you. Right? And they do something called leveling a lot, which is where they put other people down to build themselves up. So one of the ways that you'll know that you're dealing with a narcissist is they'll constantly find ways to cut you down. And also not just you, other people around them, right? That's how they feel a sense of self, is by feeling superior. And that's also how they avoid having to deal with the emotion of feeling inferior. So little to no levels of empathy, sense of superiority, constantly leveling, putting others down to build themselves up, never take ownership. Last thing I'll say is the narcissist is the ultimate victim in their mind. Everything is everybody else's fault, right? But anyway, it's impossible to be in a relationship with a narcissist. It doesn't work, because in a real relationship, both people make mistakes. You take ownership. You say, I'm sorry. You move on. And it's good. But what I would say is if you read Dr. Ramani's books, you do a lot of research into it, I would work with a therapist or a counselor or something, and you're pretty certain you're dealing with somebody like that, unfortunately, most of them will never change. They don't think that they have any issues that need to change. And so, unfortunately, there's really only one choice, which is to walk away. But I would do your research and really know that you know that that's what's going on before you'd walk away. So, anyway, and again, if I had more context, yeah, he's admitted he just doesn't get it and really believes he does nothing wrong. He's admitted what? That he's a narcissist? Because if so, that would be like an overt narcissist. They actually, so there's 2 types. There's covert and overt. Overt, they'll just tell you straight up, I'm a narcissist, I don't care. But covert will try to hide it. But yeah, it's hard, but yet, like, go to my TikTok and scroll down a lot, and you'll see my videos on narcissism that I used to do. and you'll see hundreds of comments of people that stayed with the narcissist and they literally wasted their life. So, but again, you have to ask yourself the question, are you dealing with just a difficult season of life? Because people go through things. What if he's just going through some stuff? Has this been ongoing for years and years, or you know what I mean? So I think marriage, you should fight for it, and don't just walk away, but look for patterns over a long period of time is one thing. Yeah, you said he never does anything wrong in his mind, and that makes it really hard to have a relationship, right? Like yesterday, I ended up, like, I had just woken up from a nap, and I was super cranky. I mean, I was like, I needed to get up because if I sleep too long in my nap, I won't be able to go to sleep at night. And I ended up saying something that was really rude to my wife. And after about like 30 minutes or whatever, after I kind of woke up or whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt bad. I felt it. See, empathy is physiological. And see, if you're dealing with somebody who's in the narcissist spectrum, especially, they're not feeling pain in their body whenever they hurt people. They're too busy being in their head trying to weasel their way out of the situation and find out how you're wrong. They don't feel empathy. Empathy is physiological, right? It's in your body. So I felt pain. I was like, oh God, that was messed up. And I went to her and I said, baby, I'm sorry. I love you and I'm very, very sorry for that. And I gave her a hug. And that's life. I mess up, I apologize. And then she messes up, she apologizes. That's a normal relationship. Oh, Ollie the Tabby, nice to meet you. Well, it's good to have you. Check out my free 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma, Anxiety, Panic, and DPR Masterclass as well, Ollie. That'll get you going in the right direction too. And there's also a button where you can click to apply to work with me and my team. We got all kinds of programs where we can help you as well. We got to take a look at your situation. No promises, but we'll do what we can to help you. Yeah, it feels like you're wasting your life. Absolutely. But again, fight for your marriage. I'm not trying to say don't do that. But if there's infidelity, extreme neglect or abuse, or if you're dealing with a narcissist, those would be the situations that I would say, like, you probably need to consider walking away. Is the audio still working, guys, or did it shut off? Can you guys hear me okay? Is it still working? Okay, cool. James Dean, Howie, are you talking about me, bro? It's funny, every time I do a live stream, everybody always says all these different people that I apparently look like. If you're saying I look like James Dean, that was like one of the best compliments I've ever gotten, dude. Is he like the really good-looking dude that wears the leather jacket all the time and had like the slick back hair? Bro, I yeah, that was awesome. My self-esteem points went up like 5 points just now. He admits that he can't empathize towards me because I'm his wife, so it's different on how he treats his friends and family. That doesn't make any sense to me. What products do you use for your hair? That's so funny. I just got a new new paste stuff. It's called Gravity Paste. If you're really curious, believe it or not, like I get a haircut like once a week, and I blow dry it in a certain way, and I've got like this whole little thing. It's taken me years to get my hair where I'm getting a lot of compliments on it now, so I guess I'll assume that it's looking all right. But guys, I've gone through some rough phases with hair, guys. Look at some old videos. It's been a journey. But yeah, I'm glad that you're thinking that it's looking all right. I just need to get like a pack of cigarettes and wear it or have it on my pocket or something like that, and then I'll be from Greece or something. Greaser. Hey, you want to recover from DPR, man? DPR, I got you, man. Anxiety. I'm never doing that again. Loving the eyebrow slit. Thank you. Yeah, I do that for the wife. She likes it. I'm also growing my sides out. Um, I was used doing like the buzz thing, and I didn't really dig it anymore. Samuel, sorry, buddy. So feeling like you're waking up all the time is normal for DPDR. I mean, guys, I can't diagnose. Like, I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a greaser, guys. I'm a greaser from Arkansas. Um, so just know this. Talk to a licensed mental professional. Talk to a doctor. That's just my opinion. But yeah, that's not a diagnosis, but from an education perspective, yeah, people can describe it as if like they're just waking up all the time or feeling high all the time, feeling drunk all the time. Fonzie. Teleporting feeling. Yeah, I could see that. Well, Zook, this is my live stream, buddy, and I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about, man. So, I wanted to keep talking about that, and I thought it was very helpful. So, but I appreciate you, man. Do you have any questions, Zook, that you wanted to ask me now that I'm done with that? Feels like you're in Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, I believe that DPDR sometimes is called Alice in Wonderland syndrome or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I feel like I've heard that before. Cool, guys. I've got to jump off here in just a second, but anybody got any last minute questions? Okay, Joey, and I'll go back and maybe answer some other questions. By the way, thank you so much for all these questions, guys. I'm loving them, but I try to pick questions that I think will apply to a lot of people. Joey said, Jordan, what was it like to feel your first break from DPDR? I'll never forget it, man. Well, there were two different times that DPDR shut off for me. One of them was really not um, true recovery because I just used acceptance techniques and I got rid of my panic attacks, and you know DPDR kind of stopped happening mostly. I felt it every now and then, but it wasn't there all the time, and so I thought I was cured. But then a couple years later, DPDR came back from like full swing, and but anyway, um, the second time in particular, well, okay, let me talk about both times. The first time, I felt like I had a fresh start at life. Like I remember this was like in 2008 or whatever. Like I couldn't. You can't hear me again? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, maybe it's just that person. But anyway, the first time I felt like I got a fresh start at life. I mean, it got so bad, guys. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't watch TV. Um, I couldn't mow the grass. I couldn't do anything without it triggering a panic attack in DPDR. And once I finally started to get rid of the panic attacks, kind of through acceptance techniques, I wasn't having panic attacks anymore. And, um, DPDR again shut off for the most part. And I remember mowing the grass, and I literally jumped up and down because I was so excited just to mow the grass without having a panic attack. Gosh, I have not thought about this in years, guys. Wow. So yeah, I mean, like there was like a couple days or whatever where like everything was joyful, right? Like I was just like ecstatic just to do the most basic things because I couldn't previously do anything without having a panic attack or experiencing DPDR. Now, a couple years later, whenever everything came back, um, and then I finally got over it, I remember I was at work and I realized that it had been like, I can't remember how long, maybe like 20, 30 minutes without experiencing severe DPDR or time feeling distorted or any other symptoms. And that's whenever I started to do the body based stuff. And I was like, it worked. Oh my gosh, it's actually working. Like I was almost, and then when I remember whenever I acknowledged that I got a break from symptoms, the symptoms came back. And that's something that happens with my clients a lot of times. They'll be like, "Yay, I got a break." And then by thinking about the symptoms being gone, you are thinking about the symptoms, which creates stress, and then it can induce the symptoms again. Ariel says, "Do any of you guys get the weird balance dizziness, floor tilt feeling?" Oh my gosh, I used to get that all the time, Ariel. It literally felt like an earthquake. Like I would be standing there and my body would get real heavy. I'd kind of feel my kind of chest getting tight and, kind of hunching over, and I would feel like super off balance. It felt like the floor was moving out from underneath me. And it's because I was severely anxious all the time. And now it never happens. Ever, by the way. Yeah, that was super, and I was like, yeah, like a personal earthquake. That's exactly how it felt. I was like, "What the heck is this?" You know? Jake from State Farm is here, guys. You know that commercial? He's actually on this live stream right now. Very awesome to have you, Jake from State Farm. He says, "Do you think the foods we are eating are a contributing factor that can cause DPDR, like processed foods and the poison in other foods?" I do. I do think that it's a factor. It can be a major factor for some people. Food is mood, and I think that especially like if you eat only carbohydrates, well, not only carbs, but if you eat a bunch of empty carbs, you don't have enough proteins, fats, fiber with your meals. Um, it can actually trigger a huge increase of glucose, followed by a huge crash in your glucose. And your body will actually trigger adrenaline to stabilize your blood sugars. This is called reactive hypoglycemia. And so sometimes one of the reasons why people's nervous system is all jacked up is because their diet is absolute crap and all they're eating is a bunch of empty carbs, and it's causing this reactive hypoglycemia. It's causing adrenaline, muscle tension. How much is the cost of your program? So, first of all, we'd have to determine we can help, right? So that's the first step. I don't want to go promising prices and programs just yet. But if you go to my profile, as well as underneath this video or any of my long form videos, there's a link. You can watch my free 45-minute masterclass on how to heal from symptoms, the 5 shifts that you need to make. There's a little button. You click that, you apply. Then you can go and book a call with my team where we can go over the program, assuming that we first determine that we can help you. So I'd love for you to check that out, man. Awesome. Yeah, food is mood. Yeah, that's one of the best quotes that I've ever heard, man. It really, really matters, right? Okay, guys, I am going to go and jump off here. I'm pretty tired. I've been on here for 93 minutes, so I hope that this has added a lot of value to you. Again, if you guys are wanting my free 5 shifts heal from trauma, anxiety, panic, and DPR masterclass, go to the link of this video or any of my videos. Also, if you just go to my profile on YouTube, you can click it there and watch it. And then also, if you do determine that you'd like to work with me, there is a button. You click that, you can apply, and then it goes to book a call to where you can speak with me and my team. And I think we've got about 60 people going through my RISE programs, and a lot of people are joining. And I actually just added it to where every single day you'll have a chance to speak with me, and I'll answer your questions. And yeah, you get one-on-one coaching, you get group coaching until you're fully recovered. You get my online course, my S5 method. Like I hook you up if you do this stuff, if you work with me, man. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get some shut eye. As you can see, my eyes are getting kind of, my greaser eyes are getting greasy. Awesome, guys. Hey, good to see you guys. Thanks, Ariel. Thanks, Vid Clips. Thanks, Level Plane Productions. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Joey. Thanks, Jake from State Farm. Good to have you, dude. I might call you for some insurance, adjustments or something. Maybe switch over. I love you on the commercials. Thanks for all that you do, man. And anyway, trying to make a joke. Anyway, take care, guys.